perfect, flawless teaching, that is his doctrine. And before we do so, let us take a moment for us all to observe the 5 precepts. And with that in mind, can I ask you all to recite the Namaskara 3 times altogether. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saranāgamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānātipātā vēramaṇī, Sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, Adinādāna vēramaṇī, Sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī, Sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, Musāvādā vēramaṇī, Sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, Suramēraya majjapamā daṭṭhāna vēramaṇī, Sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ, Dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ khatva, Appamādena sampādeta. Okay. You may now all be seated. Before we commence, let us take a moment to acknowledge the fact, to reflect and contemplate on the fact that it is because of the Lord Buddha, the supremely enlightened one, the perfect one, the infinitely compassionate one, the peerless one, that we have this Dhamma today. It is because he sacrificed himself over many thousands, hundreds of thousands, many millions of births, stops throughout this journey in samsara, each time cleansing himself for the sake of all sentient beings. It is thanks to him we have this Dhamma today. And as I always remind you, I am not its owner. I am just the vehicle through which the Dhamma is being conveyed to you. The Lord Buddha is the owner, He is the proprietor, and therefore before we commence, let us pay homage to the Lord Buddha, acknowledging that fact and recognizing that He is the Master who has taught us this path to deliverance. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Also, before we commence, let us take a moment to invite all the devas, brahmas, the spirits, demons and the dead, anyone who might have been a relative of ours, either near or distant, a mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephews and grandparents and so on and so forth. Wherever they may be today, if they have been born in the woeful plains, may they be able to witness this meritorious deed and accrue the merits that might help them be born in the blissful plane. And for those who are born in the blissful plane, may this gift of Dhamma enable them to achieve the supreme bliss of enlightenment. So as I now make this invitation, I request you all to join me in extending this invitation now to all those beings in your minds and in your hearts. Open them up. May they join us. May they be able to witness this meritorious deed. May they be able to listen to the Lord Buddha's sermon and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhamman Munirajasansa Sunantu Sagamokkadang Dhamma savana kalo ayang badhanta. Dhamma savana kalo ayang badhanta. Dhamma savana kalo ayang badhanta. And finally, before we commence, let us take a moment to once again acknowledge, recognize and reflect on the fact that although today we have the gift of Dhamma, and through the Dhamma our lives have changed beyond recognition, we are not the people who we used to be. We are on a path practicing this path to deliverance, practicing this path to purification. However, throughout our endless journey in samsara, where we can see no beginning, our associations have not been with the Dhamma or those who were able to give us the Dhamma. As a matter of fact, virtually almost always our associations have been with ignoble people, with immoral people. And in those associations, they infiltrated our minds with raga, dvesha, moha. They instilled in our minds avidya and tanha, which is ignorance and attachment. And having done so, having not been able to identify with the Aryas, the noble ones, the Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacheka Buddhas, the Arahata Buddhas, Anagami, Sakridagami, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana, we may have slandered them, abused them, offended them, either knowingly or unknowingly. However, unfortunately, such offenses, such slanders, such abuse that we might have directed to them, either knowingly or unknowingly, today block our path, hinder our progress in the Dhamma. So, prior to us commencing, let us all take a moment to genuinely and honestly seek forgiveness from all those Aryas whom we might have offended, either in the past, in the present, or the future. And also, let us all make a firm resolve that through the course of this sermon, may I be able to close the doors to the gates to the hells once and for all. And to do that, may I be able to attain the ultimate, may I be able to witness the ultimate bliss of Nibbana by attaining the fruit of Sotapanna through the course of this very sermon itself. With that firm resolve and determination in mind, I ask you all to be prepared to listen to this sermon. Okay. I'm guessing it's a long weekend. That's okay. Either you've got no friends, or you're that member of the family that no one really likes to get along with. Oh, I remember those days. Or perhaps your relations are very understanding, and you've explained to them, you know what, why don't we meet up on another day? Sundays are not really good for meetups and catch-ups, because there's this sermon that I want to attend to, and I've been going along for some time, and I would really like not to miss it if at all possible. And they said, that's perfectly fine. Off you go. So either your people don't like you very much, or your relations are very understanding. Well, either way, you're here today, so that's the most important thing. And now that we're here, we make the most of today. A few new faces as well, so some of the Dhamma that we'll talk about will cover some of the preliminary stuff that perhaps some of our more regular listeners will be accustomed to and be very familiar with, but that's okay, because reminding ourselves of the basics is never a wrong thing to do. In fact, you don't really need a lot. To get to the other side of this ocean, that is samsara, to get to the other side of this river, you really don't need a lot. You need very little. In fact, people confuse themselves and they get the whole thing, they convolute the whole thing, trying to look for complexities that you really don't need. When the Buddha has laid it out in very simple terms, in a number of places, on a number of occasions, that monks, this is all you need to do. You don't need to go far, you don't need to look a lot, you don't need to look a lot further. It's very simple. What you need to do is very simple. As I think I've said many times to you in the past, attaining Nibbana is, what is attaining Nibbana? What is Nibbana? We speak of Nibbana all the time. Nibbana paramasukhe sukhita taravetta. We may be healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Nibbana, Nibbana, Nibbana. This, Nibbana, that. What is Nibbana? Absolutely. It's a state of what? State of body or state of mind, or what is it? It's a state of mind. It's a state of mind. So you couldn't look at somebody and say whether they've experienced Nibbana or not, because it's a state of mind, not a state of body, unless you could read someone's mind. There are plenty of stories that you can find in the Tripitaka where there are monks who go into these mental absorptions, the jhanas, and some of them are aryas, some of them are anaryas, because there are lots of states of absorptions, samadhi and jhanas that you can go into either as an arya or an anarya. And then particularly in the discourses where the devas come and have these discussions with the Buddha, or sometimes with his disciples, they say, Venerable Sir, I can see that you are in a state of mental absorption, but I can't see what mental object you are holding on to. I can see that you're fixed, your mind is fixed on a certain mental object. You're practicing the path, you're in a deep state of meditation, you're in a state of absorption, a jhana. But I can't see what it is that you're holding on to. I can't penetrate through your mind to witness that. So this is why the Buddha calls Nibbana as something that's an asankata. There's a sutra that's called the Asankata Sutra, in which the Buddha very clearly lays out, Nibbana is ragakya, dveshakya, mohakya, Nibbana. It's the eradication of raga, which is desire, the eradication of dvesha, which is aversion, hatred, anger, right? And the eradication of delusion, moha. Once you've removed these three, uprooted them once and for all, never to grow back again. That's the state of mind. That state of mind is Nibbana. And if that is your objective and you're practicing the jhanas or practicing meditation, be that walking, sitting down, ironing your clothes, taking a wash, sitting down on the toilet, could you not do that? Absolutely. And today we'll begin to talk a little bit about how is it that you can do meditation by doing all the other things that you need to do in your day-to-day lives. Well, provided that they are not inclined towards raga, dvesha, moha. So these devas, they come and say, ajaniya jahite, as in monk or one who is practicing the jhanas. I can see that you are in a state of meditation, you are holding on to something, but what it is that you're holding on to, that I cannot see. Because it's a what? It's an asankata. Nibbana is an asankata. An asankata is something that is what? Not conditioned. Everything else in this world is conditioned. What is conditioned? What does that mean? What's an air conditioner? I think we've discussed that in the past, right? Why do you call an air conditioner an air conditioner? Because it conditions the air. Says it on the tin, right? What does it mean to condition something? To maintain a certain state. So when we say that everything in this world is conditioned, there's a state that all things in this world have to maintain. Or all processes in this world, all systems in this world are trying to maintain something in some state. Take you as an example. Would you not like to maintain a state of healthiness? A state of hygiene? Would you not like to do that? I mean, some people don't. But that's not you, I'm sure. Some people don't. A state of happiness? Is that not a state that people like to maintain? A state of calmness? Sometimes a state of joy? A state of being a mother? You can only be a mother for as long as you have a child. And once you have a child, now to be a mother, you have to be with child. Once your child is dead, you're no longer a mother. I mean, yes, people give various interpretations to that, but a mother is someone that has a child. A father is someone that has a child. Until such time, they're only a man and a woman. So once you've attained a certain state, you want to maintain that state. This fan is currently in a state of what? Rotation. So it's a sankata. All these things are sankatas. The rainbow is a sankata. Everything you can see around you, the chair that you're sitting on, the fact that you're breathing right now, the fact that you're alive right now, all of these are conditioned. Why? Because it's those conditions. There are a number of conditions that help you or keep you in that state. So what's the problem with these conditioned things then? Is there a problem with conditioned things? Is there really? Is there a problem with conditioned things? Or is there a problem with attaching to conditioned things? We've got to nail this on the head, ladies and gentlemen. It's got to be nailed on the head. There's no room for error here. Because one tiny millimeter you're off and you're off in the wrong direction. That's how flights work, right? Long distance travel, 1 millimeter off the path and you end up somewhere completely in Timbuktu you end up. You wanted to go to Australia, you end up somewhere else. 1 millimeter, you're off and that's it. So you have to constantly keep adjusting yourself, maneuvering on the right path if you want to get to this destination which is Nibbana. But Nibbana is not a place. Remember, we've spoken about this in the past. Some people do come and ask me, what does that look like? Is it fun in this place, Nibbana? Will I have my friends when I go there, Swami? No answer. That's okay. These questions are always welcome. Because we need to understand where it is we are heading. Otherwise, how do we know? Nibbana is somewhere where you go having seen what it looks like. Knowing what it is, you then start traveling towards Nibbana. You don't go there and then see what Nibbana is like. That's not that kind of journey. This is why a Sotapanna is someone who has seen what Nibbana is. Chakkung udapadi, Jnanang udapadi, Panya udapadi, Vidya udapadi, Aloko udapadi. I now see what Nibbana is. And then you start to travel towards that path. So we have to clearly then understand what Nibbana is before we can start our journey. Otherwise you're just going AWOL. You're just going here, there, everywhere, not knowing where you're going, no direction, no heading. Like, what did we say last week? Kalua, Marapangira. So again, for our non-native Sinhala speakers, Kalua is a lad that is a servant in a particular home. So this is a saying. These are idioms that we use we have in Sinhala. So Kalua is his lad, a servant boy, and the master calls him, say, Kalua, come here. I want you to go to Marapan. Is a name of a place. It's a made-up place, I think. I don't know if such a place exists on the map. Kalua, I want you to go to Marapan. And the moment he says that, he's gone. And he says, hey, come here. Yes. So what? Where did you go? Well, you wanted me to go to Marapan. For what? Oh yeah, you didn't tell me, did you? So you can't go towards Nibbana like that. You need to know where you're going. You need to know why you're doing it. Right? So therefore, you have to experience what Nibbana is before you start traveling on that journey. And this is why we always have to go back and refer to what the Buddha says about Nibbana, because he's the master. If you want to get to where he went to, if you want to get to where the most venerable, the elders like Sariputta, Moggallana, Mahakashapa got to, then you have to go by their teaching. Go anywhere else, take anyone else's teaching, and you're off on another track. That's okay if that's what you want. But if it's Nibbana you want to head towards, then you have to really understand what Nibbana is. So Raga Kyo, Dvesha Kyo, Moha Kyo. Kshayo is to eradicate. Raga, Kshaya. Raga, desire. Dvesha, aversion, and Moha, delusion. So these are the three defilements that bind us to samsara. For as long as we are desirous of something, for as long as we feel aversion towards something, and for as long as we are deluded about something, we are in a constant state of mind where we are yearning for something all the time. This is where expectations come into the picture. Whenever you're yearning something, you know, there's always an attachment somewhere, right? You don't desire what you don't try to acquire what it is you don't desire. So to acquire something, you always have to desire it beforehand. And the things that you desire are the things that you think are going to bring you happiness. So for as long as you have that delusion that all these outside objects, these outside things, these people, these events, these occurrences, they bring me happiness, you're constantly going to be attached to them and you're going to find happiness. You're trying to find, or rather, you're going to try to find happiness by associating with these outside entities, sankatas. But the nature of all sankatas are, as it says on the tin, they are sankata, means they are conditioned. And the nature of all conditioned things are, they'll only remain in that state for as long as the conditions are right. Going back to the air conditioner will only condition it provided all the, provided the settings are right, or if the physics or the machinery is working, then provided all that's working fine, then you get the air conditioner working as such. As you'll know, if you own an air conditioner, from time to time you go and clear the filters, right? You wash it, you get it serviced. So all these things you have to do. Why? Because you want to condition and you want to remain in the atmosphere that you're in an ambient temperature. So the nature of all conditioned things is such, but that is not the problem. The problem is attachment. And this is why the Buddha says, as we've discussed many times before, remember the last time that you shed a tear. Okay, now I'm going to relate it into your personal life situations and examples. When you listen to this Dhamma, ladies and gentlemen, it's not your ears that must pay attention to the Dhamma, it's your minds. Wasn't there an animal that walked past a few moments ago? Oh, well, there he is. It can hear what I'm saying, but it doesn't have the capacity to understand what it is I'm saying. So it's never going to attain Nibbana. You see, this fire of desire that you all feel within you, do you not feel the fire of desire? When you are desirous about something, whether it's a person, an object, or whatever the case might be, you can feel your heart starting to pound faster. The blood starts rushing around your body faster than it normally does. And you start going red, sometimes blushing, right? You're in a state of excitement. And chances are you can't sustain that state of excitement for very long, because your body starts heating up. Have you not experienced this? When you feel desirous about something, you start blushing and you start, you start feeling the heat within your body. Why heat? It's a fire. Where else does heat come from other than from a fire? So that's the fire of desire. Or it's a fire of aversion, where you want to hit somebody. You want to teach someone a lesson. You want to show him who's boss. Right? Now you want, and again it's fire. You want to hit him. You want to retaliate. All this is fire. And I'm sure you'll all have experiences, and so have I. But desire and aversion, they're both feelings. They're not positive feelings. They're all negative feelings, because it's a feeling of burning. There's burning within us. And for as long as we are burning on the inside, that fire is going to consume us. And that's the fire that we want to put out. Putting out of that fire is what Nibbana is all about. It's that state of mind where you put out those fires. And this is why the Buddha says, what you need to do is not put the fire out that's on the outside. Don't go try to change the world, because the problem is not with the outside world. The problem is always within you. Fix yourself and you fix the problem. Remember, in previous sermons we used the example, there are two kinds of people in this world. They're both pointing the finger. One's looking through a what? A window. And the other's looking at a mirror. They're both saying, hey, the problem's with you, sort yourself out. So the guy that's looking out the window is always pointing at outside people, objects, animals, birds, bees, right? The sunrise, the sunset, everything on the outside world. When are you ever going to find happiness like that? But when you're pointing at a mirror, there's only one person you need to fix. And he's staring right at you. So go fix that problem. And you are a testament of that. It makes me really happy to hear your stories. How at the end of sermons you come and speak to me and say, Swamin Wahansa, we've now been practicing this Dhamma for some time, and I can feel that the fire of desire and aversion and delusion, they're starting to be put out slowly. Previously I used to have battles at work. I used to have battles with my family, with people, members of my family who didn't get along with me very well, and I found that really upsetting, very, very disturbing. And I couldn't sleep at night. But now, thanks to the Buddha's Dhamma, I'm able to be satisfied within myself. The fires of desire, the fires of aversion are being put out. And the basis of these fires is nothing but delusion. It's this delusion that happiness can be found by associating with outside objects. Yes, this is the basics, but it's the basics that we need, ladies and gentlemen. I might sound like a broken record now, but that's okay, because it's the basics that we need. Once someone comes and asks the Buddha, Venerable Sir, what is it that we need to do to attain Nibbana? And he says, Sabbe Sankara Anicchati, Yada Panyaya Passati, Ata Nimbittati Dukkhe, Esa Maggo Visuddhya. He asks, what is the path to purification? Visuddhya. What is the path to purification? And then the Lord Buddha expounds, Sabbe Sankara Anicchati. This state of anicca is a state of what? Pelima, this vexation that we have talked about in the past. And that state of vexation, that feeling of anxiety, agony and suffering, that only comes when you attach yourself to something. Really quick examples. Mothers have died. How many mothers do you think have died since I started this sermon? But none of you are shedding any tears right now. How many children do you think have died in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in these countries where it's really difficult to make a living sometimes? No one's crying. How many husbands have broken up with their wives? How many miscarriages? None of you are crying. Why is that? Because you weren't in the picture. Because it's not you that went through it. Because you weren't attached to whatever it is that was lost. Mothers died, but it wasn't your mother. Fathers died, but it wasn't your father. But what if you get a call right now, and it's someone in your family and says, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I know you said don't interrupt me, but father's dead. Could that not happen? And whoever receives that call is going to start weeping. They might run out of this hole, pulling their hair out, if they weren't expecting that such a thing. But everyone else, they're going to be okay. So it's not losing things that is the real problem. It's having that attachment to the things that we lose. Do you have anything that you think you're never going to lose in this world? Do you possess anything that you're never going to lose? Or you're thinking your money, my jewelry, No, it's all locked and safe in my bedroom, so I'm not going to lose any of that. You sure? Okay, you might think you've got the best security systems in the world installed in your home. But what if you die? What security systems have you installed around you to keep you safe from death? Okay, one might say, well, I have these bodyguards that are with me 24/7. Well, bodyguards can keep you safe from other human beings or maybe other animals and things like that. But, there's a biological clock that runs inside of all of you. It's going tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Remember grandfather's clock? That was too tall for its shelf, stood 90 years on the floor. And then when the day came, it was time to go. No riches, no relatives, no uncles, no brothers, no sisters, no children could come and save grandfather when it was time for that clock to tick one last time. So when that's going to come to you, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to lose every single thing that's in and around you. The problem's going to be if you're still attached to those things, not losing things. You chip your fingernails, or not chip, but you trim your fingernails once a week, twice a week, right? You have no problem with throwing them in the bin, but that's all still part of you, is it not? When you go to the salon, you get your hair cut and you throw them away. You throw that away, that's never a problem to you, it's never been a problem. But what if you wake up one morning and you see all your hair's being cut off? And you see your little son or your daughter with pairs of scissors in her hands going, "Ammi, see what I did today? I thought it was fun to do that. Now how are you going to feel?" Well, you went and gave all that hair to the barber at the salon and you have no problem with that. Why? Because you are happy to shed things that you're not attached to. You went into the salon thinking, "Nah, I don't like that flock of hair. It's a bit too long, or that bit's a bit too short. It's not leveled. I need that bit trimmed off. I need that bit extended." Right? That's how you go into the salon. So you're going in already having decided, "Nah, that bit, I don't want it. I want it off." Then you're okay with that. Because what's disappeared now? The attachment is gone. Once the attachment's gone, no problem. But for as long as the attachment is there, when it's time to say goodbye, when it's time to bid farewell, it becomes a problem. That's where suffering arises. Now, for as long as we don't see that, what happens is we continue to go and attach ourselves to things. Think about your lives now. I want you to go back into your lives, your past lives. Not past lives, but in this life, you can't. Well, perhaps there are some of you who can look at past lives. Let's forget that for the time being. Think about the time you've been alive. Didn't you try to find happiness by going and attaching yourself to things? All the time. You always went and attached yourself to things. Thinking what? This is going to bring me happiness. But didn't the very things that you thought was going to bring you happiness ultimately bring you unhappiness? Dissatisfaction, sorrow, grief. Did you not cry because of something that you were attached to? When was the last time you cried because you lost something that you weren't attached to? Next door neighbor died? No problem. Someone in your household died? Problem. See, it's always attachment. So, sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati. That's Pali, by the way, but that's okay, I'll explain it to you in English. Sabbe sankhara anicchati. Now, what most people think this is sabbe is all. Sabbe sankhara anicchati. All things, sankhara comes in all different types of forms, right? So we've talked about kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara. So sankhara are deeds. These are the things that we do, either mentally, through speech or body. So mind, speech or body, right? There's also another type of sankhara, but these are then you have the classification of the abhisankhara and the visankhara. Let's not get all confused, right? Let's just talk about the sankhara. So sankhara comes, so these are the formations. Formations, or in simple terms, the things that we do. Things that we do through speech, mind, and body. Sabbe sankhara anicchati. Anicca is this feeling, it's that notion of suffering, this notion of vexation. Pilanatto anichatto. In the Patisambhida Magga Prakarane, which is a book that was written by I can't remember the name now. It'll come back to me in a moment. So these are books that are all part of the Tripitaka, but they have been written to detail the concise Dhamma that is contained within the other books. So Patisambhida Magga Prakarane, within that you can see Pilanatto anichatto. Pilanatto, atto is arthaya, the meaning. Take anicca to be something that is going to put you into a state of vexation, into a state of suffering. So anicca, dukkha, anatta is what the Buddha has come into this world to teach us, right? But not all things are anicca. This is what we need to understand. Because the meaning on the surface, sabbe sankhara anicchati, well, what about Arahatun Vahanses? If sankhara is the things that we do, don't Arahatun Vahanses do things? Didn't the Buddha do things? What, ever since he attained Nibbana, ever since he became the Buddha, did he just sit under the Bo tree and wait his 45 years of life until it expired, doing nothing? Is that what it did? Have you ever heard of a more busier character? A more busy character than the Buddha? He only slept for 2 hours a day. I mean, someone like the Buddha, sleeping is a real loss. Because you only get a Buddha once, many millions of eons. And then for him to shut his eyes for 2 hours a day, that's a huge loss. I mean, think about it. 45 times 365 times 2. That's a lot of hours he slept. Compared to us, it's nothing. But considering that he was a supreme Buddha, he only slept because his body needed it. Unlike us, we sleep, why? Because we can do so. I mean, how many times have you woken up in bed and thought, I can just snooze a couple more minutes. Before you know it, it's another couple of hours. Your body didn't need it, that's why you were naturally woken up. But you thought, nah, it's a Sunday, might as well. Anyway, coming back. So, the Buddha did things. He did sankhara. Kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, mano sankhara. Every time he delivered a sermon, was that not vachi sankhara? Was that not mano sankhara? And when he went on foot to deliver that sermon, as he was moving his lips, his vocal cords, was that not kaya sankhara? But did that leave him in a state of vexation? No. Because we're not talking about suffering to the body, we're talking about suffering to the mind. But the Buddha is someone who's eradicated all mental suffering. Once the attachment has been eradicated, then all mental suffering is gone once and for all, never to come back again. So then it begs the question, how is it that sabbe sankhara is anicca? Does it not? So this is where we need to really study and make sense of these words without just taking the meaning that looks the meaning that looks obvious on the surface. Sabba is swa abba. Swa is what? The self. Swa icha, swecha, voluntary service, swecha seve. Swa icha, swa is self, icha is kamatta or liking. I like to do it, so I'll do it. You don't have to pay me for it. That's voluntary service, right? Swa abba. Abba, the word abba in Pali or in Sinhala is elbagena inna. To attach yourself, to promote. What? The self. So when you're doing sankhara to promote the self, now that is anicca. Absolutely. That leaves you in a state of vexation, no question. Remember we talked about the self, baby Natasha, right? When this self-view exists within us, when this notion of a self exists, we always want to continue to nurture this self. Keep this self alive. And I'm not talking about the physical body, not you as a person. I'm talking about the self that lives inside of you. This self that is eradicated when you become an Arahatun Vahanse, an Arahant. Once in the Devata Sangyukta, which is the book in which the Buddha's discussions with the Devas, On one occasion, one Deva comes and asks the Buddha, Venerable Sir, I hear that there are arahants who speak of the self. They say, I did this, I went there, I said this, I ate, I slept. Why do they say so when you tell me that they have eradicated the self? And the Buddha replies, this is because they just use it in convention. They have completely eradicated the view and the notion of a self, but in convention, this is what you have to use to speak. You know, when you say, Puta, come here, son, come here, that's a convention. Does your son have a label on him called, that says son? Then why is it that then his teacher doesn't call him that? He says, student, come here. When he gets married one day, his wife doesn't say, son, come here, does he? Does she? She says, darling, come here. Dear husband, come here. So it's a convention. Conventions that we use to live in a conventional world. But in the absolute sense, they have eradicated this notion of a self. So, for as long as we have ignorance within us, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to nurture the self. And this self, as we've discussed in the past, it arises with the chittas, the thoughts that arise in your mind. Remember, we have no problem with the body. Why? Why is there no problem with the body? Doesn't the body bring you suffering? No? How many times do you think you're going to change your posture now that you've sat down to listen to this sermon before the time I end this sermon? I say a good few times. When you really want to go to the toilet, isn't that your body giving you suffering? Giving you pain? When you have a headache, is that your mind suffering or your body suffering? That's your body. When you're hungry, that's your body suffering. But why is it that we don't spend time talking about the body? Why? Because there's a natural end to that problem. What's the natural end to that problem? Death. As soon as death hits you, that's it. No more physical pain. All physical pain's gone. But the nature of mental pains is not such. With rebirth, the mind rises again, and for the mind to be homed, it needs a body again. So for as long as this mind goes through transmigration, a body is formed to be a home for this mind. So it's the mind that we are trying to fix here. The raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion that arises in the mind that we are trying to fix. I remember once my dad, he, as I've said in the past, he's a scientist, right? So he taught me to look at the world in a very material sense, and this is why I did so. In my young age, I questioned everything, and there's nothing wrong with questioning everything, but sometimes you get into this mode of you're questioning for the sake of questioning, and you hold on to these views and you're delusional, really. So my dad, I think it would be fair for me to say, even to this date, he does not believe in rebirth. He does not believe in rebirth. So he says, no, that's it. At the end of this, I'm gone. That's it. No problem. Despite that, he tells me from time to time how, he's got arthritis, and he tells me, son, Swamin Wahansa now, of course, I have these pains. So whenever I speak to him, and he's still in the UK, where, in the winter, he finds it particularly difficult. He says just walking up the stairs is excruciatingly painful. I feel pains in all my joints, and sometimes when I go to the hospital, they inject me with these medicines, and those injections, they give you straight into the joints. And that's so painful, I scream and I yell, he says. So one day I asked him, so Apache, you don't believe in rebirth, right? He says, yes, I don't believe in rebirth. So I said, isn't the purpose of your life happiness? He said, yes, the purpose of my life is happiness. And that's true for all of us, is it not? Yes, the purpose of our life is. Anyone here living to be unhappy? I really like to be unhappy. Anyone? No, that would be madness. So we're all trying to find this happiness. And the same applies true for my father as well. So he says, yes, but I want to be happy. So I said, Apache, if you take 24 hours a day And if you're feeling these pains in your body, and these pains you tell me are excruciating sometimes, and you feel this pain for more than 12 hours, so that's 12 hours and 1 second. That's more than 50% of your day you're in pain. So I asked him, do you feel this pain for more than 12 hours a day? He said, yes, most days it's about 18 hours sometimes. If you add all of them together, all the times when I'm not sleeping, or all the other times when I'm feeling the pain, if you add them all together, that's a lot of time in the day. I said, well, it looks to me that although your purpose in life is happiness, most of the day you're in suffering. You're in pain. He said, yeah, you know what, you've got a point there. I'm in pain. Yes, that is true. So I said, well, you don't believe in rebirth, right? No. Well, guess what? I've got a way to put you out of this pain. I know this injection that once you inject it, it'll only last for 5 seconds, maybe 10 at most, and then you're gone. Of course, you're not going to come back, so no pain. Problem sorted. Happy? He said, how dare you say something like that to me? I wanted to get the point across to him. Of course, I'm not going to inject any lethal injections into him. He's my father. That would be an anantariya papakarma. But I wanted to get the point across to him. It's not the body that's the problem here, Appaji. When you die, the body is gone. So we don't need to fix that problem. It's quite possible that some of you here will be bedridden in the next year. Is that not possible? Not a possibility? In the next year, you're bedridden and that's it. You'll be like that until the day you die. I know lots of people like that. When I was first in the UK and I wanted to be a doctor, that was my lifelong ambition back then. There was a time when I went and worked in a nursing home. I don't think I've shared that story with you before. So I worked as a carer in a care home. Because over there you need experience to prove that you're really cut out for the job as a doctor. So when I worked in that nursing home, there have been lots of times I've seen people, and actually it was a care home for the elderly, but it was more of a hospice. So the difference between a hospice and a care home for the elderly is that people who come into a hospice are terminally ill. So chances are they're not going to leave that home alive. So I worked there and I got a lot of experience out of that. And I remember to this day how we would be allocated patients to go and wash up and clean, and I did the full package. So you would go into their room, wake them up in the morning. Some in their 50s, some quite young, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, both male and female. So we were trained to do the job, obviously. And so I would go in there, walk into the room, and then wake them up in the morning. Frank, wake up, Frank. I'm here to wash you. I'm here to clean you. So you brush their teeth. Right? And then you clean them all top to bottom, and sometimes they'll have puked all over the bed. Sometimes they'll have gone to the toilet all over the bed. Some of them have diarrhea. So when you're walking into the room, it's business. I've done all that. I've seen the side of life that you're going to experience in a little while, in a few years' time, but I've seen it back then. And this is why it sends a shiver down my spine, thinking of what I've seen and knowing that it's coming my way. Sends a shiver down my spine, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how it makes you feel. So I remember to this day how one day I was washing Frank up and I was cleaning him up, and he was not feeling very well the last week that I was with him. The last week I was with him. And he was speaking with me. I was washing him up and he said, good morning. And I was talking to him, how was your night? Did you have a peaceful sleep? He said, yes. And that was all he said. So the next moment I go, Frank, he's gone. Gone. That's the end of that life. So I've had people die in my arms. I'm used to that. But the thing is, what I'm not still used to is this person dying in my arms. That's me. I'm trying to get used to that. Because whether I like it or not, that day is coming. And I've seen how people, when they're bedridden, like I said, sometimes they all over the bed, just poo, all over the bed. And sometimes even their family can't come close because one, they're not used to that. They can't bear the strong smells of urea and feces, right? It's all bacteria there, so you have to cover yourself up. And some patients, they have what they call MRSA, methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which is a bacteria which is resistant to lots of different types of antibiotics. So over the course of time, they've become resistant, and therefore normal antibiotics can't treat those. So we had to dress up in special clothes for that. Well, the gist of the story is that, this is coming to all of you. I really want you to recognize that. And today you're sat upright. Well done you. Well, for how long? So for as long as we are entwined with this self, we're going to continue to nurture this self. To nurture this self, we are always looking for things that give us pleasure. Anyone here look for pain? Everyone's looking for pleasure, right? Through their eyes, nose, tongue, ears, body, right? Through your five senses, you're always looking for pleasure. You ask for pleasure, but what you get with the package is the problem. Anyone here came into this world asking to have cancer one day? But didn't that happen to those people who suffer from cancer, who have suffered from cancer? Anyone came into this world asking for arthritis? No, you didn't ask for that, but that came with the package, did it not? It's like, you buy an electric equipment, when you go to an electric shop, they pack it up with Rigiform and polythene, that's all part of the package. You didn't ask for that. You only wanted the item that was going to bring you pleasure, but all the other stuff you're going to have to deal with. Now you're going to have to find where to chuck the Rigiform, where to throw the polythene, right? That's going to be your problem. Likewise, when you ask for this package of pleasure is what you ask for. Can I have this? You can have it, but with the rest of the package. So disease, decay, and death, all that came with the package. Why? Sabbe Sankara. Because we went indulging in Sabbe Sankara, Swa Abba Sankara. The Sankaras that were nurturing the self. Delusion that there was a self that we want to nurture. Remember the baby Natasha story? I keep reminding it because that was, I think, a really good example that perhaps helped drill the point within you. This mad woman who thinks that she's got a child. She thinks she's got a child, and she's even given it a name. This is my baby, and it's called Natasha. So she's feeding the baby. Her wardrobes used to be filled with her own clothes, but now as soon as she thought that she's got a baby, she chucked all those clothes out, and now she's got baby wear in her wardrobe. And her refrigerator is now filled with baby food. The cupboards in the kitchen are filled with baby foods and baby utensils, baby clothes. So all the things she does now is to nurture this baby, the baby that really doesn't exist. And then she's taken to the doctor by her husband, who realizes that she's just gone mad. She goes on talking about a baby, and she wants me to go shopping for the baby. She wants me to feed the baby. She wants me to clothe the baby. She wants me to stop the baby from crying whenever it's crying. And she doesn't let me be at peace when I know there's no baby, but she wants to keep me to help nurture the baby. So the husband realizes this just cannot go on, takes the patient to the psychiatrist, and then this treatment starts. So that psychiatrist is the Lord Buddha. The Lord Buddha who teaches us this baby that you think really lives inside of you is just a delusional view. There is no baby, there is no self. But the problem is, for someone who's delusioned, you can't just say there's no baby. Well, what is this then? That's why the Buddha says don't either say there is a self or there is no self, right? We've heard that in the past, right? Atma ki annatepa, anatma ki annatepa. He rejected both the self view and the no self view. But in real terms, there is no self. But the problem is, for someone that believes in a self, well, then they're going to ask, well, what is it that I experience? That's where the problem is. So that's why when the deity comes and asks the Buddha, why these Arahatun Vahanses, they talk about a self. And that's when the Buddha says, they have eradicated the self, the notion of a self entirely, but we live in a conventional world, so we have to use these terms and there is no problem with that. So the problem then is attachment. And the nurturing of this self, that is where the problem is. So all the things that we do to nurture the self, either through speech, mind or body, now all of that is anicca. As a reminder, going back to some of the sermons we've discussed in the previous weeks, why is that anicca? Why does that why does that leave us in a state of vexation? Come on. How do we nurture the self? Through Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Right? That's Rupa being form, Vedana being feeling, Sanya being identification, recognition, Sankhara being the formations, and Vijnana being the consciousness. So these are the 5 building blocks that make up these chittas that arise and pass away like a sinusoidal wave. And under each of these curves, if you can imagine a curve, right, a sinusoidal curve, under each of these curves, there are 5 blocks: Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. And if you split one of these curves right in the middle, half the time it's arising, the other half it's perishing. Arising and passing away, arising and passing away, and this continues non-stop. Until when? You should know this by now. Is it until you become an arahant? Until? There are 3 states. 1, asanya sattva, where the mind does not exist in that sphere of existence. It's just the body. And you'll be there for many kalpas. Because these are people who believe that the problem is with the mind. So I need to eradicate the mind. There's a sutra called the Mano Nivarana Sutta. Again in the Samyutta Nikaya. Mano Nivarana Sutta. Again a deity comes and asks the Buddha, Venerable Sir, this mind is really the problem here, right? So we should just eradicate the mind. And the Buddha says, no, the mind is not the problem. Don't go trying to eradicate the mind. Don't go trying to stop the mind. What you need to do is eradicate raga, dvesha, moha. Where the mind is inclined towards papa, the sins, that's where the problem is. Mano Nivarana Sutta. Go and read. You can download the Tripitaka onto your mobile phones. It's there in English, I think now. There are apps for that. Also in Sinhala for those of you. And if you like to read the Pali version, there is that. And there are some apps on which you can just one tap and it gives you the Sinhala meaning right there. So, I encourage you to read the Tripitaka. Because then you'll see that the things that we speak when we come along is stuff that we've taken from the Tripitaka. It's not stuff that I make up, like some people think. Some people think that I make this stuff up. How can I make this stuff up? Seriously. Why do you give me so much credit? I do not have the capacity to make the Dhamma up. I am not the master. In front of the Buddha, I am nobody. I am not that intelligent. Don't give me so much credit. I don't deserve it. I can't make this stuff up. It's the Buddha's Dhamma. So the Mano Nivarana Sutta, he says, the problem is with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion. That's what you need to fix. Eradicate raga, dvesha, moha, now you have the purified mind and there's no problem with that. So once you become an Arahatun Vahanse, you still have Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana arising and passing away, arising and passing away. But what's not there now? 2 things, avidya and tanha, which is ignorance and attachment. Ignorance is the foundation on which attachment continues to exist. Ignorance of what? What day of the week it is? Is that what ignorance is? No, the ignorance of the 4 noble truths. What are the 4 noble truths? So this is like a compact version of a lot of the Dhamma that we've spoken in the past, right? Before I get into the other stuff that I said I'll speak to you about, this meditation and how we can continue. I think we did an introduction to meditation a few weeks back, so we can kind of take a next step towards it. Because this understanding is absolutely crucial. Before we take that step, It's fine for you to come and say, Swami Nuhansa, please teach us how to meditate, but what are you going to meditate on? That's the problem I'm going to have to ask you. Because once you have clear understanding of this Dhamma, I guarantee, I vouch, you won't have to come and ask me, Swami Nuhansa, what do I need to meditate on? You shouldn't have to come and ask me for meditation objects. Karmasthana. You shouldn't have to ask me for that. Why? Because you don't need a teacher from that point forward. When? Once you become a Sotapanna. Because then you've seen the problem. Then you've seen the root for the problem, the cause for the problem. You've seen the treatment for the problem. What is the remedy? And you've seen the path to the treatment. So once you've seen the Four Noble Truths, then you no longer need a teacher. Who says so? The Buddha says so, not me. I'm not making this stuff up, okay? Don't give me credit when I don't deserve it. So the ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths, what's the first noble truth? The first noble truth of suffering. It's not the first truth of suffering. It's the first noble truth of suffering. Why did you use the adjective noble? What's so special about that word? Do you not suffer? Do you need the Buddha to come and teach you that you suffer? No. Before the Buddha became enlightened under the Bodhi tree, did he not know that people suffer? If you're hit, does that not give you pain? That's painful. People die, that's painful, right? Friends, family, they die, pass away, right? You fall ill, sick, right? Suffering, yes, clearly. You don't need the Buddha to teach you that, do you? No. Basic understanding about the world is enough for you to understand that we suffer. But the noble truth of suffering is not the same. Because in the noble truth of suffering, what the Buddha says, this is why he calls it Arya Satya. Noble is Arya. In the noble truth of suffering, what the Buddha says is, look for suffering behind the pleasures. Where do we look for suffering? In the things that are obvious that bring us suffering. The suffering that everyone experiences, that's obvious. You don't need a Buddha to show us that. You go and ask a Muslim, do you not feel suffering? Yes. So you don't need the Buddha then to attain Nibbana. That's not true, right? That can't be true. There's no way you could attain Nibbana without a Buddha. Either you have to become a Samma Sambuddha, or a Pacceka Buddha, or to become an Arahata Buddha, you have to associate the Dhamma that has been expounded by a Buddha. So, the first noble truth of suffering is to look at the suffering, to penetrate the superficial pleasure and see the suffering that lies beneath. And a good example we've used in the past is that of the rat caught in a cage or a trap, right? You set a trap at home for a rat and without any bait. Imagine that. There's a trap but there's no bait. Anyone caught a rat without bait? I'd like to know how you did that. You can't catch a rat without bait. You need the bait. Or someone gone fishing with just the hook, no bait. Anyone done fishing without a bait and came back home with lots of fish? No, that doesn't happen. Because the fish is lured by the bait, not by the hook. The rat is lured by the bait, not by the trap. Because when it's just a trap, you see the pain. Then you walk away. No question. You don't go see a pit and jump into it, knowing that it's a pit. But what if it's been covered with something that is so attractive? Why do sometimes people set traps in the jungle, right, to catch these beasts? What they do is they dig a really big hole and then they cover it up with foliage, right? Grass and green and stuff like that, and then they put something that lures the animal, like some kind of vegetable, maybe a carrot or something like that. And when this beast comes to eat the carrot, what happens then? That's it, into the trap. So it's the pleasure that lures us to the suffering. That's the noble truth of suffering. To realize that it's pleasure that ultimately brings us suffering. Why? How do we know that? Were you ever attached to anything that didn't bring you pleasure? Tell me. Were you ever attached to something that didn't bring you pleasure? Did anything that you weren't attached to bring you suffering? Once you've got these two equations, then all you have to do is join these two equations together. One equation, or two statements, and then join the two statements together, you get the Buddha's Dhamma there. One statement, did you ever suffer because of something that you weren't attached to? Now you could say, well, hang on. Yes, there's this guy that I really don't like. I'm not attached to him, but he comes and shouts at me all the time, he swears at me and I don't like that, and that brings me suffering. Yes, you're not attached to the guy, but you're attached to him not saying the things that you don't like. That's also a type of attachment. There's a state that you are attached to. What's that state? I don't want him to say things to me. I don't want him to say things like that to me. Isn't this why you get angry with your children or your family? Right, Puta, don't say things like that. Don't speak up to your mother like that. Why? Because you don't like your son to speak up to you. So you're attached to that, aren't you? If there's suffering, there has to be attachment. If you can't see it, then you just have to keep digging deeper. That's all. Now, otherwise the Buddha got it wrong. And we know the Buddha didn't get it wrong. So we've got it wrong. If you can't see the suffering behind the attachment, or behind the pleasure, if you can't see the suffering, or if you can't see the attachment behind the suffering, then you just have to keep digging deeper, penetrate, look within. So once again the statement, here's the question. Did you ever suffer because of something that you weren't attached to? Did you? Did you ever suffer because of something you weren't attached to? No. You always suffered because of something you were attached to. Whether that is taking away something that you were attached to, clearly that brings you suffering, or bringing something towards you that you don't like. Why do you not like it? Because you like the state of that not coming towards you. That's a subtle point, but do you get it? Please let me know if you didn't get it, and I'll explain it to you again. It's the state of something that you don't like. I mean, take an example of a cockroach. Do you like cockroaches in your kitchen? Anyone? No. So you like the state of your kitchen without cockroaches. You like the state of your bathroom when it's clean, right? Especially, think of your back home, in your homes. Sometimes your kid goes into the bathroom, he leaves the bathroom in a mess, he or she. And now that makes you angry. Puta, why haven't you made your bed? Why haven't you cleaned your bedroom? That makes you angry. Why? Because you like the state where it's in a good condition. So these are all sankatas. Why? Condition. It's these conditions that we attach ourselves to. See? Always conditions. All conditional things that you are attached to, that's the sabbe sankara. These conditioned things that we are attached to, and either you want to maintain it in that state, and so you're attached, or you don't like, because you want to maintain it in that state, something that's going to help you maintain that state you're attached to, something that doesn't help you maintain it in that state, now you have aversion towards it. That's also because of what? The attachment to that state. All good with that point? Okay. So, it's the lure of that state, that pleasure, that is the problem here. Because once we see when we see pleasure, that's what we are attached to. That's the first noble truth. So therefore, the second noble truth is, what is the cause for that suffering? Well, now it becomes clear. Because once you've seen the first, you've seen the second. You can't just see the first noble truth and not see the second noble truth. Why? Because you clearly see it's the pain behind the pleasure. Not the pain in the pain. That's obvious to everyone. But the pain behind the pleasure, that's not obvious to everyone. That you need samma ditthi for, the right view, to help you see that. The pain behind the pleasure. So once you've seen that, then you understand, but it's the pleasure that I was attached to. And going back to the example of the rat, I've asked you this question before. If the rat wants to take lessons so that it's not caught up in the cage, which of these two classes does it need to go to? One teaches it how to avoid the trap. The second teaches it how to avoid the bait. Which one? How to avoid the bait. You don't need the rat to avoid, you don't need to teach the rat to avoid the trap. Duh, I don't go to the trap. But show me the bait, now I've got a problem. Because that looks so pleasurable. Now I'm going to attach myself to it, but it doesn't see the pain that comes afterwards. Right? So the second noble truth is then the attachment to the things that bring us pleasure. And pleasure comes through our 5 senses. Eyes, nose, ears, tongue and body. So to nurture the self, going back to sabbe sankara anicchati yada panyaya passati, I'll explain the meaning behind the other 3 terms as well. Sabbe sankara anicchati, so to nurture the self, you have to continue to bring the rupa vedana sanya sankara vijnana that you like. Not any old rupa vedana sanya sankara vijnana, the ones that you like. Because the self exists in liking. The self exists in attachment. The self exists in desire. How do we know? Remove attachment, the self goes with it. This is why an Arahatun Mahasi has no self. Because the self is nothing but a condition. It's the amalgamation of all the conditions that we are attached to. That's what we call the self. Let me ask you this question. If I were to ask you to write an essay about yourself, what would you write about? Think. You would write about, well, you might start with your name. Then you might say, I'm this many years of age. Then you might say, well, here are some of the things that I like. I like to eat chicken fried rice. I like to live in this country. I like to listen to pop music. I like, or maybe reggae music. I like this kind of dance. I like to watch movies. I like to do this. I like to do that. Isn't each of these things that you're saying you like conditions? Aren't all of the things that you're saying that you like conditions? You'll say, I'm such and such as husband or wife. Isn't that a condition? That's a condition. Why? Because that will only be so. That condition will only manifest for as long as the conditions behind it continue to feed. Right? So therefore, what you are saying is, I am attached to these conditions and that's me. So me is nothing other than the totality of all the conditions that you are attached to. It's like you're writing a number of sums on a bit of paper, you add them all up, that's the me that you get at the bottom. Yes, sir. The liking is in the, it's part of the vijnana, yes. Because you have the rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana, but we like all 5 of them. The reasons for, the roots for all 5 of them, because some people like, it's not some people, in fact all liking, all attachment is towards all 5. This is why it's called the 5 aggregates. It's not just the rupa aggregate and the rest of them are just panchaskandha. They're all pancha upadana skandha. Upadana to all 5. And upadana arises due to what? Attachment. So attachment to rupa leads to what? Rupa upadana skandha. Attachment to vedana leads to what? Vedana upadana skandha. Attachment to sanya leads to what? Sanya upadana skandha. Sankara upadana skandha. Vijnana upadana skandha. That attachment is because of avidya. You see, these 5, they arise because of ahara, avidya, tanha, kamma, ahara, nibbati lakkana, which we've discussed in the past. I'm not going to bring it into today's discussion because we have a few new faces and it's going to be completely off. You're going to switch off. I don't want that. This is deep. And this is deep, seriously. But the reason it might sound familiar to you now is because we've been talking about it for over several weeks and I'm using examples and similes and metaphors and trying every trick in the book to try and make it as simple for you as possible. That's not because you're simpletons, and please don't get me wrong. It's because, I have more time to study the Dhamma. Whereas you have busy lives to lead. So, 24/7 I'm studying the Dhamma and then I come and give you a sermon at the end of the week of the things that I've discovered, I've learned in the past week. Okay, so that's why, not because if you went on the same path, you would get the same understanding. So what I'm trying to do is break this down into simple bite-sized chunks so it's easy to understand. That's the service that you expect of me and this is why I'm doing this. So we are attached to all 5 of these. And the attachment doesn't go away just to one, it goes away to all. Why? Because every time a chitta arises, there has to be rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana. There was never a chitta that arose with just rupa and vedana and vijnana, without the other 2. They arise together and they pass away together. The Buddha says so. That's a niyama dharma. It's a law. It's a law of the Dhamma. They have to arise together and they do have to pass away together. The problem is in attachment. Attachment to all 5 of these. So when the attachment is there, now you're not happy with just any old 5. There are particular types of 5 that you're looking for. What are the 5? The Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. So when I say a set of 5 or a pack of 5, you know what I'm talking about, okay? Otherwise I'm going to have to keep saying Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. That's a lot to say. So I'll just say a pack of 5 or a set of 5, and so you should know what I'm speaking of. So when you like a certain set of 5, you're going to want to find these types of sets of 5, not just any old. This is why you change the channel on your television. Otherwise, when you sit down in front of the TV, you switch on the TV, isn't that Rupa the moment you switch on the TV, isn't that Rupa? Isn't that Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana? So why change the channel then? Your eyes are seeing something, your mind is picking up something, and your chittas are rising and passing away, no problem. You sit an Arahatun Wahanse in front of a television that's just got the black and white dots on it, you know, like how they have at the end of a channel, or a channel that has, or a TV that has not been tuned. Have an Arahatun Wahanse sit in front of the TV and see if he's going to complain about it. But have you and I sat in front of a TV like that? How long can you stare at a TV that has not been tuned to a channel? That's just got those, you know, white and black spots on the TV. Just noise. How long can you stare at that and be okay with that? Not very long. Why? Because those rupas we don't like. We don't get the sukha vedana from that. No pleasurable feeling comes from that. Because through that we are not able to nurture the self. So to nurture the self, you know, baby Natasha is crying for baby food. The baby is not crying for sausages. The baby is crying for what? Baby biscuits. So now you have to go find baby biscuits, not any old biscuits. You know, there are baby biscuits and there are adult biscuits. You don't let the baby eat adult biscuits, do you? You give the baby baby biscuits, baby food. So the baby wants baby food, and therefore when this self exists within you, which is the attachment to the conditions, that's what the self is. The totality, the sum of the attachment to all conditions, that's the self. Because when you define yourself, this is what you say. I am so and so. I am like this. I am such and such to such person. I like this. I don't like this. You know, think back as to when you wrote those essays, when you gave speeches. My favorite color is this. Remember when you stood up in front of the classroom and asked to give a speech? Putta, speak about yourself for 2 minutes. My favorite color, my favorite sport, my favorite sportsman. Right? This is what kids say. What they're saying is, here are the conditions that I'm attached to. So add them all up, there's yourself. So it's because we are attached to these things, we are always and constantly looking for these things to nurture the self. So when you don't have to nurture the self any longer, now it doesn't matter whether the set of 5 that comes around is a set of 5 that you like or don't like. Why? Because there is no me liking that set any longer. When there is no self to nurture, when there is no baby to feed, it doesn't matter what food is brought into the house. Any old food is okay. Any food goes. Any clothes, okay. Anything goes, no problem. But when you're particular about something, now you need to be focused, now you need to bring in the things that you need. Now you have a problem. It's like my Guru Swami Maharaj gives us this example of sets. You know how we've studied sets in math, right? So you have the universal set, which is all the objects. You know, take an example, animals, right? Now you have a universal set which includes all types of animals, amphibians and reptiles and all types of animals in there. Then you have subsets. Once you've defined a subset, only certain things can fit into this subset. Not everything can fit into this subset, right? So if you say 2-legged animal, or if you say 4-legged animals, does a bird fit into that? No. But into the set of animals? Yes, no problem. Cheetah? Yes, that fits into the subset. A tiger fits into the subset. A crocodile? Yes, fits into the subset. What about a spider? No. It fits into the universal set, but not into the subset. See, defining a self is like defining a subset. Because there are all things in this world, and that's the universal set. But once you've defined a subset, how do you define a subset? By stating the conditions. Condition what? Four-legged animals. That's a condition, right? Once you've defined that conditions, only certain things can penetrate into that set. Others, no, you cannot enter. Why? This is not a place for you. So that is the self. So imagine having lots of sets like that. The foods I like to eat, the people I like to speak to, the pictures, the sights I like to see, the songs I like to listen to. What happens when you have all those sets, one on top of the other, and what do you call the center point? The where two sets meet? Sorry, the intersection, yes. The intersection. It's not been long since you've been in school. You should know this. The intersection, right? So that intersection is what? What's the intersection? Self. Absolutely, that's the self. The intersection of all the conditions that you have defined, where all of those things meet together, that intersection is the self. Now, isn't that self, that intersection different for each and every one of us? Each and every one of you. If you take your family, if there's 5 of you in your family, the sights that you like to see is different for each and every one of you, right? The food that you like to eat, one likes Chinese, the other likes Indian. Isn't this why when you decide where shall we go out for dinner, one says this place, the other says that place, now there's a little fight at home that you have to come to some kind of compromise to? Why? Because we all have different sets that we've defined. And the intersection is not the same for everyone. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. That's right, yes. So, you see, because it is because of ignorance, we give value to things in the outside world. Why? Because we think the outside world objects brings us happiness. That's the ignorance. Right? Attachment brings you happiness. That's ignorance. Attachment brings you suffering. That's enlightenment. So when we believe, when we have this notion that attachment brings us happiness, now you're ignorant. Now the things that bring me happiness are not the things that bring you happiness, sir. The things that bring you happiness, sir, are not the things that brings happiness to you, madam. So you're going to each go and look for the things that bring you happiness. And then you're going to define conditions. I like this in that state. I like a boy who works hard. I like a girl who has long hair. I like a girl who has fair complexion. Right? These are all conditions. And isn't that different for each and every one of us? I like a job that allows me to work at a computer, at the desk every day. I like a job that lets me walk out and be what's the word there? Peripatetic. Where you travel everywhere to work. So your work requires you to travel like a salesman. A sales representative who might keep traveling through their work. So these are all conditions. So the intersection of all those conditions is the self that we've defined for ourselves. And now this intersection might change from time to time. You know, just because your child likes chocolate today doesn't mean he's always going to like chocolate. I remember when I was a young boy, I hated mallum, which are leaves. Yes, just like you. I hated it. If my mother cooked mallum at home, I would fast that day. I would make up stories like, "Oh, mother, I've got a really bad stomachache. I really can't eat today." Because I know if I'm okay to eat the other thing, she's going to say, "Well, if you can eat that, surely you can eat this." So I would make up stories. But now I'm perfectly fine with that. So my self has changed, has evolved over time. Why? Because of ignorance. Because we are always looking for happiness. And the fact that we are looking for happiness doesn't change. Even after you become an Arya, the fact that you are looking for happiness doesn't change. It's the things that you do to look for happiness that changes. Yes. Absolutely, yes. Yes, that's a very good point. The Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, or at least the Rupa, I mean the Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, we are talking about, again, even the five, we are talking about the things that arise in our minds, right? But the ahara, or the nutriment that gives rise to the five aggregates, they exist in the outside world. But the fact of the matter is, when we are attached to the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that arise in our own minds, where then we call them the five clinging aggregates, the Pancha Upadana Skandha, now to give rise to the five aggregates that we are clinging on to, that we are attached to, we believe that it's the outside objects that bring us that. Because we don't like all types of Rupa. We like Rupas which have fair complexion. That's why I like a girl that has fair complexion. Now that's a particular type of Rupa, not any old Rupa. But another guy might say, well actually I like women with dark skin. That's what I like. Some might say I like a girl with long hair. The other might say I like a girl with short hair. So the problem is not with the girl with either type of hair. Neither of it brings happiness. It's whatever you are attached that brings you happiness. Yes, sir. No, there's no liking. No liking. Because for there to be liking, the world has to be subjective. Because as soon as you have liking to something, then the world becomes subjective. Now, we're talking about mental though, not physical. Okay? And Arahatun Wahanse doesn't like to be hungry. He doesn't like physical pains. Otherwise, why would he go on Pindapata? Why would he go take medicines? Why would he go look for shelter? And Arahatun Wahanse still does that. But we're not talking about the physical, we're talking about the mental. Right? There are no likings, because all likings mentally are subjective. And subjective, why? Because there's ignorance that's playing a picture there, because ignorance tells us this is going to bring you happiness. Say some people like Marmite, others hate Marmite. So how is it that Marmite can bring happiness to some and dissatisfaction and real pain and distaste to others? Well, it can't be the Marmite. I mean, it's a really popular saying, right? It's like Marmite, some people say. It's a simile or it's an example that people use. Some hate it, some love it. So it's what you're attached to that brings you happiness, and also what brings you suffering later on. So to keep nurturing this self, we go looking for these things that we're attached to. So not any old stuff, the things that we're attached to, like those sets. Once you've defined those sets, now to nurture those sets, because what if that set became empty? Now there's a problem. I've defined a set, but there's nothing in it. Now there's a void there. Now it's painful. I can't bear that. So to keep, because otherwise a set with nothing in it, what's the point of that set anyway? A no-legged animal, or an animal that isn't alive. Or you could say dead animals. I mean, make up a set that doesn't exist. Okay, a five-legged human, okay, even that exists. A 10-legged human being. That's a set that does not exist. If you were to define that set would be void. It would be empty. So you can't nurture that set because there's nothing in the outside world that can provide you with food to nourish that set. So for a set to exist, there are things that we have to be attached to. There are conditions that we have to define, and then once you've defined that condition, what you tend to do is now start filling that set with as much as you possibly can. This is why people want to earn money. This is why people want to work hard and study and do all the adventures and all the enterprises that people do, is to fill their set up with as much things as they possibly can. Why? Because this is what brings me happiness. So that is the self that we keep nurturing. Now, the things that we do to keep filling that set, how do we keep filling that set? Now you're attached, you're aspiring it, then you go and acquire it. The duration between the aspiring or the desiring and the acquiring is painful. Right? We've discussed this in the past, so I'm not going to go over old stuff again. The duration of time between the desiring and the acquiring is painful. You don't like that. That's why you want to be put out of that pain for as soon as possible. So you go and look for it as soon as possible. So that's painful. There's one kind of dukkha. Then the effort that you have to make to go and acquire it, that's again painful. No one likes to cook, but you like to eat the food that you cook. I'm not talking about cooking as a hobby. I'm talking about the fact that you have to cook. No one likes that. Do you like the fact that you have to cook? No, but you like it when you can choose when to cook and when not to cook. That's when it becomes a hobby. A hobby is something you do when you like to do it. Not something you do because you have to do it. That's not a hobby. But what about cooking? That's something you have to do. Washing, it's something you have to do. Finding a place to live, it's something you have to do. So there are lots of things we have to do because that came with the package. You didn't ask for that. Anyone here asked to be hungry? Hey, I'd love a body that became hungry every now and then. I'd love to get a body that felt sick every now and then. No one asked for that, but that comes with the package. So the fact of the matter is, all this sankhara that you have to do to acquire what it is you desire, but you are acquiring this why? To nurture the self. Anna sabbe sankhara. Swa abba sankhara. All these sankharas, why? To nurture the self. Define the self and then keep nurturing it. All of that is anicca. Why? Pelinaha. Remember, I gave a definition for the word pelima, or an etymology of the word, I think a couple of weeks ago. Pahe ellima. I'm glad I do these sermons in English. There are lots of people who don't like etymology of words in Padanirukti. If I were to give a Sinhala sermon, I'd never say this. But when you understand how these words have been formed, that gives you a really profound understanding, does it not? Otherwise you just say these words, but once you look at how these words have been formed, then you get the real meaning behind it. We've talked about Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. We've talked about this in the past. What is the meaning of Sarana? It's not just paying homage. Sara Nasanava. Sara is what? Going around in sansara. Sari Saranava. Nasanava is to stop. Is there any other way to stop the going round in sansara other than paying homage to the Buddha? It's not a paying respect to him. That's not what Buddhang Saranang Gacchami is. It's not the Buddha went that way, so I'm going that way. It's not a literal sense of that. But the path that he took to purification, now that is the path that I have to take. But without the etymology of the word, how could we make sense of that word? So, coming back. So once you're attached to these five, that set of five, pahe elluna, attach, hang yourself on it. You know what happened to people who hang themselves, right? Yes, they die. So as soon as you've hung yourself on those five, now it's going to bring you what? Suffering. But an Arahatun Vahanse does not hang himself. So there's no death, there's no disease, there's no death at the end of it. There is death, but there's no suffering at the end of it. So these sets of five, they arise and they pass away, they arise and they pass away, but the things that you're attached to, you go looking for, you go yearning for, you're attached to them, and you make effort to acquire them. And that effort is not joyful, that's painful. Building a house, joyful or painful? You like living in the house, you like going and putting the key in the lock, opening it for the first time. Come on in, my dear family, this is our new home. All of that is joyful, absolutely no problem. But building a house, you'll have gone through those experiences. Working with people, the laborers and all that sort of thing, right? Seeking permissions, approvals. What a pain in the, where. Right? All that is painful, but you have to do it to acquire what it is you desire. Where there's no desire, you don't need to acquire it. Then any old house is okay. Then any old shelter is fine. This is why for an Arahatun Vahanse, he is satisfied with what? Just a shelter that's enough, that covers him, that gives him protection from the rain when he sat down cross-legged. Once an Arahatun Vahanse is sat down cross-legged, or any monk, or you and I, whoever, right? When you're sat down cross-legged, the amount of shelter that needs to be above your head so that when it rains, it doesn't get you wet, or it keeps you from the water. That is the shelter that the Buddha says you're allowed, you're permitted to use. Everything else is a luxury. So the huts that our monks live in the monastery, they're about 8 of these tiles put together. That's a luxury. It's a luxury because you don't need that much room to keep shelter when it rains. 6 would do. 8 is a luxury. So what about anything beyond that? Now that's super luxury. I'm not saying there's anything wrong or right with that. It's not for me to argue that, or it's not for me to point fingers at anybody. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you don't have to go through this process of sabbe sankara, swa abba sankara, then you're happy with the basic requisites. Yes. Absolutely, yes. So then you can be happy with anything. So that's right. So there are no rules in terms of what kind of shelter you have to look for. But everybody needs some kind of shelter. And the Buddha's advice to his disciples is, your requirement should just be something that is enough for you when you're sat down for meditation. Then the rain does not make you wet. If that meets that requirement, you have to be satisfied with that. That's a discipline or an instruction that he's given for monks. Yes, sure. Sure. No. Don't think of that as attachment. I don't know whether you are attached or not. What I would say is, yes. Yes. Well, you wanted physical comfort, because without physical comfort, you can't focus your mind on a meditation. Whatever meditation you're doing. So you need that basic level of physical comfort. Take for example, if someone was handicapped. Or perhaps, there was some kind of physical problem with them, say due to, a backache, right? Now just that kind of shelter might not be enough. Or if there's someone who finds it difficult to walk, perhaps, they'll need a plank, or, perhaps a wheelchair, or, whatever. And then the hut that you've found has to be able to accommodate a wheelchair, and now you need more room, right? So what I'm trying to say is, the Buddha has defined what the basic requisites are. Anything else is okay. You shouldn't shun away from it. You shouldn't say, oh my God, I don't want that. Take that away from me. I despise that. And that's not what you should say, because again, then there's friction there. Friction is not going to give us happiness. So what you need to do is be content with that. With the basic requisites, you have to be content. If you have a need for something more than that, ask yourself, is this need led by a mental attachment, or for me to satisfy a physical comfort? And if it's to satisfy physical comfort, because otherwise it's going to bring me physical discomfort, then that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is why, for example, when in the Buddha's, if you read some of these sutras, Arahatun Mahan says, they used to be satisfied with 1 meal a day, right? But the Buddha says, if you're sick, then he does not proclaim that you have to be satisfied with 1 meal a day. You can take meals as you wish. That's okay. If you're ill, that's okay. So, but an illness, that's not the mental illness he's speaking of, is it? That's the physical illness. Mental illness, I want to eat lots of food, I love my chocolate. No. Now you can't, you're not now permitted to go and eat as much chocolate as you like. There's no permission for that. But if it's a physical discomfort, physical pain, then yes, sure, no problem. Because anicca dukkha anatta is not going to fix the physical discomfort. For that you need to adjust yourself. The outside world, you have to adjust it to your satisfaction. But that has to be led by the physical requirement, not the mental requirement. So if you want to get yourself a meditation chair, and there's a really basic one which is very sturdy, but which is not very comfortable, and if you sat on that, you wouldn't be able to sit there for a very long period of time, then that's perfectly fine. Get one that's cushioned, more comfortable. Maybe get lots of cushions if you need. I use a cushion when I sit down to meditate, because it helps me to sit upright. Otherwise I'd start to crouch, and that becomes a little bit painful after a while. So that's okay. But that, just what we need to check is, what is it driven by? Is it wrong to use a fan when you're feeling warm? No, it's not wrong. It's okay. What if it was really warm? Then use an air conditioner. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when you go looking for those things without the physical need for it. Because what we need to learn to be is content. And for contentment, He's given us the 4 requisites. Remember, the Shasana is for someone who wants to attain Nibbana. Anya hulabhi panisa anya Nibbana gamini. For one who wants labha and prashansa, which is profit and praise, the path is one. But for one who wants to go towards Nibbana, the path is entirely different. They don't go looking for praise, they don't go looking for profit. So for one who's on the path to Nibbana, who's not looking for profit, who's not looking for praise, for him or her, the Buddha has said, be content with the basic requisites. The 4 basic requisites. For everything else, I've given you the Dhamma. Because mental satisfaction cannot be put out by indulging in sensuality. You have to have the Dhamma for that. So, let me just come back again once more to the point we were talking about, the sabbe sankhara anicchati. Okay? So, as you understand now, all this sankhara that we do for the purpose of swa-abbha, to nurture the self, is anicca. Why? Because it results in vexation. Every time you go through the process of giving rise to something because you're attached to it, when it passes away, what happens? That brings you suffering. And therefore you go through the process again of giving rise to it again. So it's a constant process of you building it up and it crashing down again. Building it up and it crashes down again. The nature of all conditioned things is what? Crashing down. But when we are not happy with that, when we want it to be the way we want it to be, then you go through the process of building the things that you want. Building the things that you like. And that is the swa-abbha. Sankhara anicchati. Yada panyaya passati. What is panyaya passati? Understand this through wisdom. Not yada vedanaya passati. He did not say yada vedanaya passati. He did not say go experience this and understand it through feeling it. He said understand this through your wisdom. Use intelligence. Use wisdom to understand this. Because the Lord Buddha says, Vindinnata dukkha panavami. I say that suffering is for the person who goes through the feeling of suffering. Vindinnata dukkha panavami. One who goes through the feeling, one who wants to experience the world through feeling. For him, I say, you deserve suffering. But the Buddha's teaching of suffering is one that we need to witness, one that we need to understand with wisdom. So it's beginning to understand suffering before you've experienced it. How do you understand suffering before you experience it? That is by penetrating the superficial pleasure. Aren't there things now aren't there things in your life, in your families, in your homes that over time you're going to lose now? Even now. Right? There are still things that you have, that you possess, you own, that over time you're going to lose. Before you had any help and support of the Dhamma, how do you think you would have responded when the day came for you to say goodbye? With no Dhamma. It would have been torture. Think about the times when it has happened to you in the past and how you responded. But now, with the Dhamma, this is why I say at the beginning, because of the Dhamma, our lives have changed beyond imagination, beyond recognition. Now the things that made you angry, the things that made you sad in the past, don't take away your mental happiness like they used to. Because you understand the nature of the world. And you understand that it's attachment that brings me suffering, not the outside object. So you're now treating the real problem, which is attachment, by understanding that this is anicca dukkha anatta, right? So you're constantly teaching you're fixing the real problem, the root of the problem. So thanks to the Dhamma, you are now more able, you are more capable to face the vicissitudes of life as they come towards you. But that hasn't happened to you yet, has it? But you're preparing yourself for it. Why? Because you know it's coming. You haven't experienced it, but through wisdom you know, I'm attached to this, that and the other. I'm attached to my children. Warning, warning, warning. The time's gonna come, the day's gonna come when I'm gonna be crying my eyes out because I'm gonna lose them. Anyone here who's not gonna lose their children? Either they're gonna go or you're gonna go. One of you has to go. So either way you're gonna lose them. Whether you like it or not. What can you do though? Prepare yourself for it. Preparing yourself for it is preparing it before the event. Right? You prepare for something before the event. So if you're preparing for it now, you're preparing through wisdom because you're seeing into the future. If I attach myself to these things, that's going to bring me pain in the future. And also the things that you attach, you have to constantly continue to nurture them. Again, I'm not talking about physically. Yes, you have to feed your children, send them to the best schools that you can afford. Give them the best education that you can. All that, do the best that you can. But mentally, that's where suffering happens. This is where attachment is not physical attachment we're talking about. It's a mental attachment. That mental attachment is only because of ignorance. So now, thanks to the Dhamma, this ignorance, we are constantly chipping away at ignorance thanks to the Buddha's Dhamma. Because we are being taught every week, every day that it's attachment that brings me suffering. So every day as you contemplate, as you reflect on your own lives, you are saying, good heavens, all these things that I'm attached to, all these tsunamis that are coming my way. Think about all the things that you're attached to right now. Take a couple of moments and think about the things that you're so strongly attached to. It could be your home, it could be your job, your car, your wife, your husband, your children, right? Your parents, your jewelry, anything. Your cutlery set, your pantry, anything. Your bathroom. Some people are so proud of their bathroom. Look at this bathroom. It's the most fantastic, most fabulous bathroom in all this country. There's not a better bathroom like this on the entire street. Some people boast about them. So think, whatever it is that you're attached to, you're going to have to say goodbye to. But if you see that through wisdom, it's the attachment that's going to bring me suffering, now you can start fixing the problem, which is attachment. Because once you fix that problem, once you severed that link, the mental link, once you've severed that, physical link is still there, but once you've severed the mental link, now it doesn't matter what happens to it and when it happens. Why? It's not going to bring you pain. It's not going to bring you suffering. Yada panyaya passati, not yada vedanaya passati. But a prutakjana, a mundane person, has no understanding of sammaditthi. They don't understand that it's avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment that brings them suffering. They believe it's the loss of the thing that I'm attached to that brings me suffering. My child died, so I'm sad. My mother died, so I'm sad. What are they thinking brings them suffering? The things that they're attached to passing away, they think brings them suffering. They don't realize that it's the attachment that brings them suffering. See? Where is going to be the end of their suffering then? How much effort can you make to stop all the things that you're attached to from stopping decaying and to stop them from decaying and dying and passing away at some point in the future? How much effort can you make and then say, yep, that's it, I've done it all? Just open up your wardrobe and see how many things you have in there to begin with. Every individual item you're attached to. How many pairs of shoes do you have? Every individual item you're attached to. Every item of jewelry, every child that you have. And for the children, every toy that you're attached to. Are you waiting for the day that comes when you have to say goodbye, when it's destroyed either by storms or fire or water or wind or whatever, stolen from you, broken, taken away, right? That day it's vedanaya passati. That day you're going to have to suffer. Even then you will know, yes, sabbhe sankhara anicchati. But then it's too late. Now that's not seeing it before the fact. That's seeing it after the fact. That's not what the Buddha's Dhamma is for. The Buddha's Dhamma is for winners, not for losers. Are you a winner or a loser? It's not for losers. Once you've lost, you've lost. The Buddha's Dhamma is for winners. For those who want to be victorious in the face of death. For those who want to be victorious in the face of decay. For those who want to be victorious in the face of disease. Bring disease, bring decay, bring death. Look if I care. What if you could say like that one day? Mother, die whenever you like. Look if I care. Not because you don't want to respect them and treat them and do the best you can. But I'm talking about the mental attachment. Look if I care. What if you could go to your parents and say, Ammi, Tati, look, all these toys that I asked you to bring for me, yes, this one you brought for me yesterday because I cried and cried and cried and finally you said, okay, you can have it. Take it away from me and look if I care. See if I care. What if you could say that? What if someone could come and lay down in front of you the thing that you love to eat the most delicious food in the world that you can think of right now? I know you're thinking of it right now. Put that in front of you and you could say, leave that there in front of me, take everyone outside of this room, you can come back whenever and it will be there just like that. I'm not hungry, so I don't need to eat it. Look if I care. See if I care. What if you could really say that? Wouldn't you be victorious? Remember I spoke about the Swamin once who came and asked me about the betel leaves and the fight that he's going through? And I said, imagine you versus a betel leaf. It's a battle versus Reverend so-and-so and a betel leaf. Seriously? This is a betel leaf. If a betel leaf can beat you down, I mean, what is this? This is nothing. Think about the things you're attached to, then brought in front of you. For some it's, because all of this is karma. This is all sensuality. Either through sight, sound, smell, taste, or physical touch. If there are young people among you, right? You'll still feel attractions towards other people. There'll be urges. I understand that. But that's what we are trying to overcome. So we have to talk about these things. What if the most attractive person that you could think of was brought in front of you and you could go, so what? See if I care. And you don't have to then control yourself. Now you need self-control. What if you didn't need self-control? You didn't need it. Not you don't do it, you don't need it. Why do you need control? Because you have to be controlled. This is what Shikshapada, these 5 precepts that we observe, why do we need to observe precepts? Because our state of mind is such that precepts are required to keep us bound up so that we don't go and harm ourselves and those that are around us. But does an Arahatan Wahanse need precepts? No. He is victorious. So yada panyaya passati ata nimbiddate dukke. Ata nibbindati dukke. Nibbindati is bandenne ne. Nibbindati. Bandenne is to attach, to bind. So nibbindati is not bound. Ata is upon that. Ata nibbindati dukke. You are now no longer bound to what? Suffering. Esa maggo visuddhya. That, monks, is the path to purification. So let's go back. What is the path to purification? What is purification? Ata nibbindati dukke. Not being bound to suffering. And how do you do that? Yada panyaya passati. Of what? Sabbe sankara anicchati. Understanding through wisdom that all these sankaras, mano sankara, kaya sankara, vachi sankara, that I continue to exhort for the purpose of nurturing and defining the self, that is going to lead to what? Suffering. Look how beautiful his Dhamma is. How profound that Dhamma is. how intoxicating that Dhamma is. The more you study this, the more you explore this, the more you delve into this, the more it becomes so delicious. It's like a sweet mango. The more you eat, the more you want. That's how the Buddha's Dhamma is. Certainly to me, that's how I feel. I love it when I can open a Tripitaka book and read it, and I sometimes read pages upon pages. All that Dhamma that he's taught us. Because it's not for the purpose of knowledge. I don't care for knowledge that much. This is why sometimes when you ask me questions, I have to go back and refer to texts, and I have to then come back and talk to you about them. Because I'm not one for knowledge. I used to be in my lay life. I wanted to know about everything in the world. I was always on the internet, looking up things and reading magazines and going on seminars and all that stuff, always wanting to keep abreast with latest technology and this, that and the other. But not now, because I don't want to attach myself to knowledge either. But the feeling of satisfaction, that happiness that I get every time I study one of his discourses, and it teaches me that it's attachment that brings you suffering, Swami answered. Monk, it's attachment that brings you suffering. Recently I was going on a journey with my Guru Swami and then I was reading the Satara Satipatthana, Mahasatipatthana Sutra. And I'll talk to you about that in the coming weeks. The foundations of mindfulness. Ekayano bhikkave maggo sattanam visuddhiya. Soka paridavana sat samatittamaya. Dukkha domanasyan attangamaya. Jnanassa adhigamaya. Nibbana satchakiriyaya. Yadidan chattaro satara satipatthana. Yadidan chattaro satipatthana. So he says the path to purification is the Satara Satipatthana. But before that there was a short introductory verse where the Buddha says, monks, listen, I am going to speak to you now. When I read those words and I imagine the Buddha sat in front of the monks and he says, monks, the supremely enlightened one is going to open his mouth. He is going to speak to you. The perfect one, the peerless one. The one that you've been waiting for so many years, many millions of yawns in samsara is now going to speak to you. That sends a shiver down my spine. Imagine that situation. The supremely enlightened one is about to speak. Every syllable he utters, it pacifies me. Imagine being in that situation. Well, although today we can't be there in person, thanks to the Dhamma, we can be there in our sentiments. We can experience the Dhamma because if you see the Dhamma, you've seen the Buddha. So there was a question. I was going to explain the meditation. I think I'll do it next week, because then we can do a whole session on that. Because it's tied to the Satara Satipatthana, where he speaks of the foundations of mindfulness. And then he speaks about 14 different ways how you can cultivate Kaya Anupassana. And he says, monks, how is it that you have to cultivate the Kaya Anupassana? And actually when you begin to study that, you understand that there's a deep meaning behind the words than what appears on the surface. How when he says, Kaya Kaya Anupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanassa. Vedanasu Vedana Anupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanassa. Chitte Chitta Anupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanassa. And Dhammesu Dhamma Anupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanassa. Kaya Anupassi, Kaya Anupassanav, Chitta Anupassanav, Vedana Anupassanav, Kaya Anupassanav, Vedana Anupassanav, Chitta Anupassanav, and Dhamma Anupassanav. This is mindfulness, yes, of the body, the feelings, the consciousness and the Dhamma. But it's not just mindfulness. It's not just being mindful that the body exists. But unfortunately, you study some of the texts and the translations, not the original text, the translations. What it says is just be mindful that you're breathing. Be mindful that you're breathing. I mean, I doubt that you need a Buddha to teach you that. This is the problem that I have. Perhaps there's something that I don't understand. If so, I'm prepared to listen. I'm always prepared to listen. That's why I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Speak less and listen more. But, just watching your breath and just being aware that you're breathing, anyone could do that. A Muslim person could do that. A Christian could, a Catholic could, Christian, Catholic, anyone could do that. But you don't need the Buddha's doctrine to reflect on your breath. You don't need to enter, you don't need to become some Sotapanna to do that. You don't need Samma Ditti to do that. But the Lord Buddha says, before you start meditation, you have to have attained at least the path of Sotapanna. At least the path of Sotapanna. Because it's only a Sotapanna that understands that, why do we do the meditation? Esamaggo Visuddhiya. The path to purification. If you don't become a Sotapanna, if you don't have Samma Ditti, how is it that you know the path to purification? How would you know the path to purification if you are not a Sotapanna? Without the Buddha's doctrine, how would you know the path to purification? The path to purification is Sabbe Sankhara Anicchati. So you have to know what Anicca is. You have to understand what this self is. You have to understand the Four Noble Truths. Without the Four Noble Truths, how can you practice the Satara Satipatthana? You can do it with the superficial meaning, yes. It would be an exercise of some sort. But for me, the question, and I'm not going to say categorically that it can't be done, because I don't want to be making such bold statements. Certainly not in public. But what I want you to think about is, just watching your breath, is that going to fix the problem? Have you, honestly, genuinely, have you not done that sort of meditation in the past? I have done it in the past. Many times I've been to meditation classes before I went to the UK, and also after I went there, I've been to meditation classes, and weeks on weeks I've sat down focusing my mind on my breath. Taking in short breaths, taking in long breaths, taking in medium-sized breaths, and then being aware that I'm breathing. But I didn't feel Raga, Dvesha, Moha, Kshaya. I didn't feel my desire being eradicated. I didn't feel my aversion or delusion being eradicated. Because I had no understanding of the Four Noble Truths. I had no understanding that it was avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment, that brought me suffering. No understanding of that. So when the Buddha says, Ekayano ayam bhikkave maggo sattanang visuddhiya, soka pariddavanang samatikkamaya, dukkha domanasayang attangamaya, jnanasya adigamaya, nibbanasya satchikiriyaya, yadidang chattaro satipattana. There's only one path to purification. He says in one stanza, and on another occasion he says, Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya passati atanibbitati dukke esamaggo visuddhiya. The other place also he says, Esamaggo Visuddhiya. Here also he says, Esamaggo Visuddhiya. Aren't they the same? So for someone to be able to practice the Satara Satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you have to have an understanding of what? What Sabbe Sankhara Anicchati is. And how you should be able to witness it before the fact, through wisdom. Yada Panyaya Passati. It's one and the same. It's just different ways of looking at the same problem. It's different ways of addressing the same problem. So we'll speak about that in the next sermon, because I want to dedicate good and quality time towards it. Otherwise, I'm not doing it justice, and I'm not doing you justice either. So there's a question here. Swami Wahansa, could you briefly explain the meaning of Nibbana Parama Sukhein Sukhitatara Vetva? So I can. The problem I have is it's in Sinhala. And I know some people are not very happy about the fact that I sometimes use even Sinhala words in my sermons. And I receive complaints sometimes. I'm sorry. I mean they do so for the right reasons. It's not because they want to have a go or attack me. It's because they say, there are listeners who are non-native speakers, and for them, when you use Sinhala or Pali, then it becomes difficult for them to keep their attention and for them to understand, and sometimes they lose interest. So this is why I've stopped using Sinhala in sermons as much as I can, but sometimes, you have to, when you particularly talk about the etymology of words, how can I give you the meaning without really showing you how these words have been made up. So anyway, I'll make an attempt here. So for those of you for whom this may be one of the first sermons that you've listened to, this Nibbana Paramasukhayen Sukhita Taraveta, that's a Sinhala phrase. Nibbana is Nirvana, okay? Enlightenment. Paramasukha, the ultimate happiness. Parama is ultimate. Sukha is happiness. The ultimate happiness of Nibbana. The ultimate happiness of enlightenment. Nibbana Paramasukhayen Sukhita Taravetva. Vetva is a wish. You wish that on somebody. May you be well, may you be happy. So you use the word Vetva in Sinhala for that. When it's the plural. Veva is the singular and Vetva is the plural. Sukhita Tara. I think that's the word that's been underlined. Sukhita Tara. As you'll know by now, having listened to these sermons for some time, there are two ways that people find happiness in this world. One is through attachment, and one is by letting go of attachment. And you'll know by now that the happiness that you look for by attaching yourself to things in a worldly existence, laukika, not the lokottara. These are again two words in Sinhala. Laukika is worldly, lokottara is supramundane. So mundane and supramundane, that's beyond the world. That doesn't mean extraterrestrial, by the way. It means leaning towards Nibbana, where we are talking about stopping existence once and for all in all the realms of existence. That is what Nibbana is. It's not a place, it's not a country, it's not another planet that you can go and live on, like I said at the beginning. It's where nothing exists. Why? Because wherever something exists, there's going to be suffering. So it's a state of no existence, full stop. Right? So, Sukhita Tara, Sukha is happiness. But people look for happiness in two ways. One way is through the outside world, by attaching to the outside world, and the other is by letting go of the outside world. One way is laukika, the other way is lokottara. One way is mundane, the other is supramundane. Okay? All with me so far? Okay. Sukhita Tara takes meaning from the word Sukhita plus lokottara. Sukhita plus lokottara. So this is happiness that can be gained only by going beyond the world. By removing yourself from the world, by being supramundane. Sukhita Tara. That's the happiness that comes through detachment. That's the happiness that comes through letting go. Not the happiness that comes from attachment. Because happiness that comes from attachment cannot lead you to Nibbana. So when we say Nibbana Paramasukhayen Sukhita Tara Vetva, that includes, well, it includes all four noble truths in it. In reality, that should be enough for someone to become a Sotapanna, if you really understood the meaning behind it. Because what does it say? Sukhita Tara, Nibbana. Bana is what? A couple. Harakabana. Right? When you, in paddy fields, how farmers, they tie up two bulls to make the harakabana. Right? A bana is a pair. Nibbana. Eken nikme now. To detach yourself from this coupling process. What is the coupling process? Me coupling up with the world. Put a stop to that. Sever that link. Nibbana. Paramasukhayen. Right? That is the ultimate happiness. So, what is the first noble truth of suffering? Sorry, the first noble truth, this is the first noble truth of suffering, which is suffering that comes from attachment. So what does Nibbana contain within that context? If you want Paramasukaya, which is the ultimate happiness, you have to do what? Nibbana. Stop the attachment. So the first and second noble truths are contained within that. Sukhita taravetva. And then the third and the fourth noble truths. So to look for that happiness, to seek that happiness, you have to cease attachment. To cease suffering, you have to cease attachment. And to do that, the only path that the Buddha has taught is the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Noble Eightfold Path, like I've said in the past, is not something that you do deliberately, it's something that happens once you've entered the path. Right? So it happens automatically. But for that, you have to enter the path initially. So once you've entered the path, then you are on this path to being Sukhitatara, Lokottara. Lokottara, Sapaya. The happiness that is supramundane, beyond the world. Vetva, may you be able to enjoy that. But you're not going to be there to enjoy it. That's the point though. Am I going to be somewhere to enjoy this? No, it's the happiness is in the not being. That's the point. It's a subtle point. But this is happiness in not being. The happiness in non-existence. There's one kind of happiness in existence, but that is happiness by being attached to the things that you're liking. That's through attachment. You are attached to being. Don't you like to be? People like to be. I like to be. Would you like to be? Be like this. This is again a condition. When you say I like to be, aren't you saying there are certain conditions within these parameters I like to be? Isn't that contained within what you're saying? Even though you don't say it out loud? I like to be. Expand that out. I like to be provided these conditions are there in the way that I like it. That's again what? Attachment. But this is happiness in not being. Happiness in non-existence. Why? Because all kinds of existence ultimately leads to what? Decay, death, and ultimately suffering. So that's what Nibbana Paramasukha and Sukhitaravetva is, and that's we've translated in English is healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Doesn't quite cut it, I know. It doesn't quite cut it. It's the best I've been able to come up with so far. But I welcome you, if you have a better command of the language, perhaps you have a better lexicon, better vocabulary, then I would urge you to perhaps write this up in better words and please pass them on to us. And if provided it contains the meaning that we want to convey, then I'll be more than happy to share it out. Because, like I said, I'm not the master. This is not my Dhamma. I am only a student, and as a student, what I learn, what I understand, I like to share with you because you want it. Because you asked me for it. The day you say, no, Swaminivasa, we no longer want to listen to you babbling on here for 3 hours every Sunday, I'm happy to go back to the monastery, sit down under a tree, on a rock, and continue with my practice. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't have an itch every Sunday to come and sit here and preach to you. I really don't. I genuinely don't. But I do have a duty to you. That I do, that I can't forget. Like I said, it's not for us to forget our duties and responsibilities. Even the Buddha says, there's a Dasadhamma Sutra in which he says, monks, dedicate your lives to the service of other people. What's the line there? Parapatibaddha me jivikati pabbajitena abhinham pacchavekkitabbam. Open up the Piritpota and you'll see it in there. Parapatibaddha me jivikati. Parapatibaddha. Para is what? Others. Patibaddha. For the service of others. Me jivikati. Your life. Parapatibaddha me jivikati pabbajitena abhinham. Pabbajita is a monk. Abhinham pacchavekkitabbam. Always reflect on the fact that has your life been of service to other people? So this is a commandment by the Buddha. It's like the 10 commandments that the Buddha has given us. The Dasadhamma Sutra. So I have a duty to you, not just because he said so, but like I say, and I share this with you from time to time, you look after me, you do everything you can for me. Right? You feed me, you robe me, you give me shelter, just like my parents used to do when I was a layperson. But today you do all that for me, and I know that working and earning money is not an easy thing to do. The food that you feed me with, the robes that you've donned on me, the medicines that you give me, you donate to the Mahasangha, and I don't just mean me, I mean the Mahasangha. All that is through hard work and labor, right? Money don't grow on trees. You work hard for that. You go through a lot of turmoil and the pressures at work. How do I know? I've been there, done that, worn the t-shirt. So I know it all. And so I know how much you go through to do that. So I have a duty to you. When you're giving me so much for my happiness, I want to give back whatever I can for your happiness. I don't have money, I don't earn money. You're not prepared yet to take my robe or my alms bowl, so the only thing I can give you is the gift of Dhamma, as yet. The day you come and say, Swami Nuhansa, I'm prepared to go forth, I'm prepared to go and enter the Shasana, then we can have a more detailed conversation. Before I end, and someone recently asked me, what is the meaning of this Vatapata? Why do we use one? And I said, like I say, there are Dhamma teachers all over. When you have an understanding of the basic principles of the Dhamma, everywhere you look, you're going to find a teacher that teaches you the Dhamma. And so I started to think about it, and what I shared with him, I'll share with you. You see how this is called the Vatapata, right, in Sinhala. And it's called the winnowing fan for those who are listening to us online. So when I say this, people have no idea what it is I'm talking about. So I'm speaking of the winnowing fan that a monk would normally hold on to as they deliver a sermon. So this has multiple purposes. It's a versatile object. It has multiple purposes. But what I think you'll find interesting is that this has a story that it tells us. It teaches us a valuable Dhamma lesson. So I'll share that with you. So you see, the Vatapata has been constructed in, and all of this is Dhamma, right? I'm not going to sit on this seat and share with you anything that's not going to help you eradicate Raga, Dvesha, Moha. I will not speak one word, otherwise my head's going to split. I ask for the Buddha's permission before I sit on this seat. So this is all Dhamma. So, at least when you see a Vatapata next time, if you can think about what I've said, then it's going to help you practice the path. Right, so look at how this has been constructed. On the outside, you see this colorful embroidery and these colorful threads that bind the outer circle, or perhaps it's some kind of metal wire. Okay, there's lots of colors. It's very colorful. This is the colorful, pleasurable life that people are used to and accustomed to living through indulgence in sensuality, in a sensual world. Because it's very vibrant, colorful, beautiful. This is what attracts you. Here's the lure. Here's the lure. It's like the bait. But for as long as these colors are there, these vibrant colors, these beautiful colors, people are going to be on the outside. They don't want to go inside, start looking for the truth. They don't want to go looking for the path to deliverance, because all they're interested in is, hey, it's beautiful on the outside. Let's have fun. It's a beautiful life and it's worth living. But after a while, when you come across the Buddha's Dhamma through the association with noble people, the Aryas, your life changes. Now think about yourselves. Haven't your lives changed over the last perhaps weeks, months, or maybe years, right? Since you started to associate the Dhamma? Haven't your lives at least begun to change in some ways? The things that you so loved and you were so attached to, right? They're slowly starting to not take such a vital place in your lives anymore. So what happens is, those who are Pruthakjanas, or the mundane people, they start to become Upasakas and Upasikas. And again, Upasaka is Upa-asaka. Asaka is Asurukarno, to associate. Upa is close association, like Upanayaka. Like Upa-amati. So one who's next in line, sort of. So next in line, you could say, take that meaning. Upasaka, asanning as lukan. Now, when you become an upasaka, upasika, as you are here today, you are in white. What color is this? It's white or a shade of white? It's a shade of white, right? So it's not as vibrant and colorful as the outside. This is about the state of mind as well, not just the color of the clothes that you are clad in right now. I'm talking about the state of mind. Previously, it used to be a vibrant world. Oh my God, there's so much to see, so much to smell, so much to taste, and I'm going to live in an indulgence. In this indulgence, life is not worth living if I can't have that. But through the understanding of Dhamma, you slowly enter the space of the Upasaka and the Upasikas. Now you're starting to shed away those defilements that defiled you. You're now trying to cleanse your mind. And as you can see, there are so this has been taken from a palmyra tree, and you have these, what would you call them? The veins, yeah? These veins that all point in the same direction, right? You can see they all point in the same direction. But they all come from lots of different places, lots of different angles. They're all not coming from the same place, but they're all going towards the same place, just like each and every one of you. You've all come here today, but you've all come from various walks of life. Some are fair, some are dark, some are tall, some are short, some are fat, some are thin, right? Some are well educated, some are not that educated. Some are wealthy, some are poor. Some come from a good lineage, some others don't. But that's all okay, because there's room for everybody. No matter where you've come from, we accept everyone that comes from everywhere, provided you're heading in one direction. And so once you're an upasaka and upasika, over time you continue to practice the path, you start moving closer to this one object, this one thing that you've seen, and one thing you now yearn. And then you move even closer, and now along with your mind, you also want to make a real statement, you want to make a physical change as well. And that's when you enter the monastery, into monastic life. So this is why, as you can see, this is a few shades more orange, or sometimes red, than the white space that you see over here. So now you're making a real change in your lives. From a supra-mundane sense, we are talking about someone who's become an anagami. But from a mundane sense, someone who's entered the monastic life. So now you shed away the white clothes, and now you moved into robes. Once you're here, your journey hasn't completed. You still have further to go. But everyone and anyone who's come from, doesn't matter where, they're all welcome. This is what the Buddha's Shasana is all about. Everybody is welcome, provided you're all willing to go the journey, provided you all have the same goal and same destination in mind. We'll come to what that goal and what that destination is in a moment. But once you've come here, now it's time to diligently practice this path. So, as you can see, this has got 4 of these nails. 1, 2 here, and there's 2 on the other side. So once you're here and you've done the robes, siuru, siura, siu, ura. Ura is what? Shoulders. Siu, 4. 4 what? Noble truths. Now your 4 noble truths are your guiding lights. Now your life has been dedicated to fulfilling, to practicing the 4 noble truths, and that is what you bear on your shoulders. All those responsibilities, those duties that you had in a lay life, they've all been shed aside. All those connections, those links that you had as a lay person, have all been shed aside. Now the purpose of your life, the purpose of your existence is what? To fulfill the 4 noble truths and to complete the path. To complete the path of what? Nibbana. This robe as well as this vatapada, this winnowing fan, is really the property of the Arahatun Wahanse. This is why they call this the Arahat Daje. Daje is the flag. An Arahat, this is the flag of an Arahatun Wahanse. Why a flag? Because that's how you identify an Arahatun Wahanse. Like I've said always and previously, many times before, when you see someone in robes, In your mind, you should be looking at an Arahatun Wahanse. This is Sariputta Maharahatan Wahanse. With that feeling, with that sentiments in mind, you should go and engage with that person, worship them, and so on and so forth. Never go to judge the person, the physical person that's down the rope. Don't think about that. His or her virtue is down to him or her. But who you should be seeing is an Arahatun Wahanse. So you see, once you've entered this path, now you're on the path to Nibbana. And as I said, this is the property of an Arahatun Wahanse. So at the end of that is someone that's holding this. And the real owner of this winnowing fan is an Arahatun Wahanse. So no matter where you've come from, all walks of life, everybody's welcome. You started your journey as a Prutakjana. That's okay. Enjoying the sensualities in life, indulging in sensuality, but then through the understanding of the Dhamma, you became an Upasaka or an Upasika. Over time, once you had the opportunity, you went forth, you became a monastic, you entered the monastic life. And having done so, you have now dedicated your lives to fulfilling and understanding the Four Noble Truths. Through that, you have now just one path, Esa Maggo Visuddhya, which is the path to Nibbana, the Noble Eightfold Path. So you go fulfilling that until you become and you are able to achieve the state of the person that's holding on to that Vatapada. And that is an Arahatun Wahanse. So you see, path to Nibbana in a Vatapada. And you thought this was just a winnowing fan, didn't you? Isn't there a grand story behind this? Now you see, next time you see a winnowing fan, you're not just going to think that's just another fan. You know, the novice monks at the monastery, I tell them, you know, don't think of this as a play object. It's not something to keep fanning you when you're feeling hot. Yes, you're permitted to do that, that's okay. But there's much deeper, more profound story behind it. So, you know, these stories, they're all over the place. You could study this whole and see if you could understand how, you know, this whole has a story behind it that leads you towards Nibbana. It's a good exercise. But, you know, that's not what you should be doing 24/7. Don't just walk around looking for story and how can I relate that to Nibbana? How can I relate this to Nibbana? Don't worry about that. That will come when it's time, when the time's right. What you need to do is, how further am I from Nibbana? Do I still feel the fires of desire, aversion and delusion? If so, I've still got a journey to go. So be diligent in your practice, as I always say when I conclude the sermons, because time is of utmost value. Time is precious. And this is time that you're never going to get back. This is an opportunity that you're never going to get. Okay. So I think we'll conclude the sermon there. Sinhala today? Yes. So I'm just wondering, because of our listeners today, shall we do it in English? And then I think we have some non-native Sinhala speakers today, right? Is that okay if we do it in English? So this is the Arya Maitri Bhavana, which is again a contemplation. In fact, I like to use the word contemplation rather than meditation, because meditation has lots of wrong connotations to it. The moment you say meditation, people think, oh, I need to run away somewhere, sit down under a tree and start my practice. There is that as well, but that's not where you should start. But contemplation, I think, is a better term, because contemplation implies that there's something that you need to do. You need to think, you need to reflect on, because really that's where the practice is. Bhavita bahulikata. Use and continuously use, frequently use, diligently, ardently. Okay, so we'll do the Arya Maitri Bhavana in English today, and next week we'll do the Sinhala one. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the rupa worlds. The arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the arupa worlds. All worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Okay. So then, before we conclude, let us take a moment to transfer merits to all those who have helped us and all those who deserve the merits of this meritorious deed. First and foremost, let us take a moment once again to reflect on the fact that the Buddha is the master, he is the teacher, he is the proprietor, he is the owner. It is thanks to his selfless dedication throughout many millions of births in samsara, his sacrifice, his dedication to the deliverance of all sentient beings that we have the gift of Dhamma today. And it's also because of the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasaka, Upasikas who have dedicated their lives to protecting and preserving the Dhamma, the Tripitaka, that we have this gift of Dhamma, the Tripitaka, to study, to understand, to comprehend and to deliver ourselves from samsara today. So may the merits that we have all acquired in conducting this sermon, in listening to this sermon, and all the dana, the charity that has happened as part and parcel of that, may all those Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasaka, Upasikas be able to rejoice in those merits. If anyone has been born in the woeful plane, may these merits help them to be born in the blissful plane. May these merits help them to fulfill the meritorious deeds, abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all the members of the Mahasangha, including the chief prelate as well as the sub-prelates, the Mahanayakas and the Anunayakas, who render an excellent and immense service to all Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis and Upasaka, Upasikas throughout this world, as well as the chief incumbent monk of this temple and the Venerable Udve Dhammaloka Swamin Mahanse, as well as all the other monks who are resident in this temple, and all the other Samanera monks as well who are resident in this temple. And also take a moment to transfer these merits to all the monks and nuns who are resident in the local temples and the nunneries that are in your local villages, your local towns, your localities. Because although we may arrive here and deliver a sermon every once in a while, it is thanks to them that you have found the foundation in the Dhamma. It is thanks to them that your children have the Dhampasal, the Dhamma schools, and it's thanks to them that it is them who sacrifice time that they have and put aside time to serving you and attending to all your needs and wants. So let us take a moment to transfer merits to all those Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis and Upasaka, Upasikas who strive day and night to understand and comprehend the Dhamma for themselves, as well as preach and transfer this Dhamma to all sentient beings who are attempting to find the deliverance in samsara. May these merits help them to fulfill the noble eightfold path and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer merits to all the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead that we invited at the start of this sermon, as well as anyone who's been a mother, father, an uncle, aunt, a relation of any way, shape or form. If anyone has been of any help, support or assistance throughout in samsara, be that by offering you a glass of water or perhaps just guiding you when you were lost in some way, shape or form, may they all be able to rejoice in these merits. If any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may these merits help them be born in the blissful plane. May these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds and fulfill the noble eightfold path and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer these merits to anyone and everyone who helped make this event a success, starting with you and your families, your mothers, your fathers, perhaps your children who enabled you to come here today, to be present here today, perhaps your spouses who permitted you to be here today, despite all the other duties and responsibilities and obligations that you might have. It is thanks to them that today you have had this opportunity to listen to this Dhamma, so may they all also rejoice in these merits. Also, anyone who might have helped you to be here today by means of providing you with transport, or perhaps by offering you a seat, or perhaps by giving you a glass of water, or in any way, shape or form enabled and made your stay here comfortable, as well as your attendance to this sermon, as well as the stay throughout this sermon comfortable for you. May all of them be able to rejoice in these merits. Also, anyone and everyone that helped and supported in constructing these venues where we deliver these sermons, may all those beings who have supported that, helped us in any way, shape or form, be able to rejoice in these merits. May these merits help them be born in the blissful plane if any of them have been born in the woeful plane. May these merits help them to abstain from the unmeritorious deeds. May these merits help them to fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all the bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all the members of the armed forces who sacrificed their lives while there was a war in Sri Lanka many years ago. It is thanks to them that today we have a country in which we can live peacefully and happily with everybody and everyone else. It is thanks to them that today we have the calmness and the peace of mind to be able to practice this Dhamma, to listen to this Dhamma, and so on. So may these merits that we have all acquired, may they be able to rejoice in these merits, as well as those members of the police force who dedicated their lives, as well as anyone who perhaps were killed in the war, be they friend or foe. If any of them are looking for merits, may these merits help them to be born in the blissful plane, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, as well as those who lost their lives to the likes of the tsunamis that happened in Sri Lanka, as well as natural disasters that might have happened, and natural calamities happened all over the world. If any of them are looking for merits, seeking for merits, may they be able to rejoice in these merits. May these merits help them be born in the blissful plane, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane. May these merits help them to fulfill the meritorious deeds, abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, and fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may the merits that we have all acquired today in preaching this sermon and listening to this sermon over many hours energize and empower all those bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas just like yourselves, who are striving day and night, working hard to eradicate the fetters, eradicate the defilements that have defiled their minds, the raga, dvesha, moha, and by doing that process, may they be able to become Arahatun Vahanses, and may this blessed land be able to witness many hundreds and thousands of Arahatun Vahanses in the very near future. May these merits help us and help them all to be able to achieve that ambition. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may the merits that we have all acquired today enable each and every one of us to be one of those Arahatun Vahanses in the very near future, so that we may all be able to find happiness, be healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, just like the Samma Sambuddhajanan Vahanses, the Pase Buddhajanan Vahanses, the Arahata Buddhajanan Vahanses, in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the noble triple gem bless you all. හොඳයි පින්තුනි මහා සංඝරත්නය විසින් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාට මෙත්තානි සංසෙන් ආශිර්වාද කරනවා සියලු දෙනා වන්දනා කරගන්න. This is a blessing from the Maha Sangha to all of you. Raga ginnen midetva Dvesha ginnen midetva Moha ginnen midetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva Tunruange suvisi ananta mahaguna belen silu loka silu satyayoma Nibbana parama sukhayen Sukhita taravetva. May the noble triple gem always be with you. May you all be healed with the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.